Hi, everyone. Okay, I think everyone is in now from the waiting room. Um, Thanks so much for taking time this evening to join us. Um, the hope was to have a 1 hour long discussion with a bunch of people who are considering the possibility or open to thinking about starting a World Beyond War chapter in your community or wherever you are based. My name is Rachel. I'm the Canada organizer with World Beyond War. And I'm joined here by my colleague Greta, who's the global organizing director with World Beyond War. Um, yeah, for those starting, this is an informal, casual info session on how to start a World Beyond War chapter, what our chapters do, how to get connected with some of the chapters that already exist for those who live somewhere where there is a chapter. Um, we are recording this session, but we won't share the part of the recording where folks introduce themselves by name. We'll just be sharing the part of the recording afterwards for folks who couldn't make it tonight. We'll just be sharing the part of the recording where we kind of explain the basics of what is a World Beyond War chapter, how does the organization work, et cetera, et cetera. Feel free to put any questions as they come up for you in the chat at any point, and we will have a chance for questions and conversation at the end where folks can kind of unmute and we can all just chat about the questions that we have. Yeah, so first, maybe Greta, maybe if you could launch just a little poll just to kind of get a read of the room and where folks are at right now. So we're just kind of curious if folks are just kind of starting to think about this, or they feel like, yeah, I want to start a chapter, but I need more information, or if you're already on the brink of getting ready to launch a chapter. So take a minute to answer that question. And in the meanwhile, I'll hand it over to Greta to introduce herself, share a little bit of kind of the global picture of World Beyond War chapters, and share a presentation about how chapters work. Thanks, Greta.
Yes. Yes, so I'll let the poll stay up for a little bit longer. But hi, everyone. It's great to meet you. My name is Greta Zaro. I'm not in Canada. I'm just across the border in Vermont in the United States. But my work is global. I've been with World Beyond War since 2018, and I'm basically the behind the scenes person that's supporting our chapters around the world. So that looks like strategy advice, organizing assistance, logistical support, promotional support, a lot of technical assistance, building websites, creating flyers, running Zoom meetings and how to do that, and teaching people how to build email lists, setting up online petitions, and all that sort of infrastructure that's needed to run your chapter. So that's basically what I do. And I think at this point I will close the poll and then I will pull up a short video that we have that just kind of gives you an introduction to World Beyond War and what a chapter is. So give me 1 second to pull that up. In this brief presentation, we'll talk about World Beyond War's mission, theory of change, and what a chapter does. World Beyond War's mission is to abolish the institution of war. We oppose all forms of war, weapons, and violence. We operate in a decentralized organizing model where volunteers around the world organize events and campaigns in their communities, all with an eye towards the larger mission of war abolition. People in over 200 countries worldwide have signed World Beyond War's Declaration of Peace. We have over 40 chapters in more than 30 countries, as well as over 100 affiliate organizations. A chapter can be thought of as a branch of World Beyond War that takes on the name, brand, and mission of World Beyond War and works closely with the staff. An affiliate is its own independent organization that partners and collaborates with World Beyond War. We also have over 1,000 organizations that have signed World Beyond War's Declaration of Peace and are listed on a map on our website. World Beyond War is a grassroots network, and we are funded in large part by small dollar donors who give as little as $5 a month to sustain our work. The Declaration of Peace is a good entry point to joining the global World Beyond War network, and chapters are encouraged to collect signatures for the Declaration of Peace to get people involved. Our theory of change involves education, nonviolent action, and media work. Our education work debunks the myths of war and lays out the proven nonviolent alternatives to war. It includes our books, our study guide, our online courses, webinars, fact sheets, and so much more. Our nonviolent action work takes many forms around the globe depending on the local context of each chapter. It could involve divesting a city from weapons, shutting down a military base, rallies, vigils, weapons blockades, and so much more. In our media work, we strive to tell a new narrative, to create our own media, such as through our monthly World Beyond War podcast or through our Billboards project. We also work to get our voice into the mainstream media through op eds, letters to the editor, radio and TV interviews, and much more. And chapters can work on any or all of these pillars, depending on what resonates with your membership and the issues facing your region. These are our guiding principles. I'll highlight just a few of them. As I mentioned earlier, we are abolitionist in our approach, advocating for the abolition of the institution of war itself. We are both pro peace and anti war, meaning that as we work to dismantle the war machine, we also tell the story of a world beyond war and work to create a culture of peace. We are global in our approach, and that's been important to us from day one. We know that one country alone cannot abolish war. We need to work as a united global movement. We are nonpartisan, which is very important to us, to work across the aisle and bring people together from all backgrounds to unite around the issue of war abolition. And we are intersectional in our approach, connecting the dots between war and other issues and building bridges with many groups beyond the anti war movement. And we're a movement builder, providing many educational resources and technical tools to organizations around the world. One framework for looking at World Beyond War's work is through the myths, the whys, and the hows. We debunk the myths that war is inevitable, necessary, beneficial, or just. We lay out the 7 whys, the 7 reasons to end war, which really delves into those intersectional impacts of war. And then we talk about the how, the AGSS, the Alternative Global Security System. How can we get to a world beyond war? Through the strategies of demilitarizing security, managing conflict non-violently, and creating a culture of peace. And we have fact sheets, articles, videos, and much more on all 3 of these aspects of this framework. We have many, many resources at World Beyond War, and I've talked about many of them already. I'll also highlight a few others. Our Peace Almanac, it's a daily calendar that highlights important moments in the peace movement and works to tell a new story instead of celebrating militaristic holidays. Our Mapping Militarism project is an important resource that maps out where troops are stationed, where bases are located, and much more around the world. We provide many organizing and technical resources to chapters and affiliates, including organizing training, social media assistance, graphic design, website design, webinar hosting, and much more. So, a chapter works to advance World Beyond War's mission. It works locally and globally. It can focus on any of those pillars that we talked about: education, action, media work. A chapter collects signatures for the Declaration of Peace and organizes a minimum of 4 events per year. And again, as I've emphasized, each chapter has a localized focus depending on the local context and what resonates with your members, all with an eye towards the larger goal of war abolition. The chapter works closely with the staff that provides resources and training to the chapter. We create a web page for each chapter, and we can also help with a variety of technical organizing tools like setting up an email list, hosting online petitions, hosting surveys, creating newsletters, creating fundraising pages, and all of those tools to support your work. We publicize your events and help to recruit volunteers. And one of the major benefits is being part of the global network where we can connect you with people around the world who are working on similar issues. So you can share strategies and tactics, what's working, what's not working, and build that camaraderie. As part of that, we have at least 4 meetings per year, which are for all of the chapter coordinators around the world to connect with each other. And we help to share your news with a wider global audience through our email list, website, and social media to help shine a light on local issues that might not get global attention. Here are some common questions. We've reviewed a few of them already. The first, as we've talked about, we are abolitionist in our approach, and so we don't support any types of violence, and we never take any side in a war. The second is about fundraising. Chapters are not expected to fundraise for World Beyond War. It's certainly available for chapters that have capacity to fundraise, but it's not a requirement. The third, as I mentioned, chapters are nonpartisan. World Beyond War Global is nonpartisan. So neither World Beyond War or any of its local chapters can endorse a political candidate for office or take sides with any political party. And the last question about the legal structure of a chapter. That also depends. Many chapters are unincorporated groups of volunteers, but we also do have chapters that are incorporated entities. So there's a range of options, and we can work with you depending on your context to help you with those structures and figure out what works best. So that's a brief presentation, a brief introduction to what World Beyond War is, what a chapter is, and we look forward to working with you. We hope this inspires you to start a chapter in your community. You can find us on all the major social media platforms at World Beyond War, and our website is simply WorldBeyondWar.org. Thank you so much. All right, and with that, I'll pass it back to you, Rachel.
Thanks, Greta. So that 7-minute video is available online, and we can share it afterwards in case folks having these follow-up conversations want to share this video with other people that they might consider starting a chapter with. So as Greta mentioned, there are many World Beyond War chapters around the world. I think at latest count, there are 49 chapters in 37 different countries. And of course, we have members and folks who are a part of our community and doing our work outside of the chapter structure in many, many, many more countries and places. But I'm going to focus a little bit on what our work across so-called Canada looks like and what our chapters work of the chapters that do exist here has looked like. So currently we have World Beyond War chapters in Toronto, Montreal, Collingwood, and a high school chapter in just outside Winnipeg. The Vancouver chapter is getting ready to relaunch shortly, and the Victoria chapter is a little bit on hiatus right now, but there's certainly openness to getting a chapter going again on Vancouver Island or in Victoria specifically. But once again, we work very, very closely, frankly, on a daily basis with folks in, I don't know, Halifax, Ottawa, Edmonton. So there are many, many connections, but not all of them are, formal, active chapters. But this space tonight is really to talk about starting a chapter. So I'll kind of focus on that work. So I'm going to, that was kind of a lot of information. So I'm instead just going to show a bunch of photos to share our work, so we can see a little bit of what this work can actually look like. I should say that the photos in this presentation are overwhelmingly from the types of things that are really easy to take really good photos of. So I don't really have lots of photos of maybe the meetings or the book clubs or even the film screenings where people are gathering in dark rooms, 100 people all together. Most of the photos that I have are of kind of the actions that are really photogenic, the chapters are doing. So just kind of keep it in mind that chapter work can look like lots of different things. But these are some fun photos that we have. So over the past year and a half, World Beyond War has obviously been extremely focused on Israel's genocide in Palestine and specifically ending Canadian complicity in it. I mean, this is something we've worked on for many, many years, ever since World Beyond War was founded. But obviously, in the past year and a half, it's been a major focus of our work. And I think the specific role World Beyond War especially has played is looking at the Canada-Israel arms trade and ending, more broadly speaking, the role of Canadian militarism in terms of what's happening on the ground in Palestine. So our chapters have been very involved in this work. These are some photos of weapons blockade actions that World Beyond War has organized, and that our chapters have been part of, literally blocking morning shifts of factory workers from being able to get into the factories where they're producing the weapons that are being shipped from Canada to Israel. Or in the bottom left here is a protest that the Toronto chapter organized outside of Arif Rani's office, who was the Minister of Justice. Some more photos of kind of some similar actions. The bottom one was outside the house of the war minister. He called himself the defense minister, which until just last month was Bill Blair. People have been trying many, 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 many different ways to reach him. He refused to engage with constituents in any way, so ultimately we were left with no choice but to visit his house. The Toronto chapter has done an amazing job of being uh, really visual in their protests and raising kind of visually the profile of asks that people are making cross country. So these are just two examples of a really beautiful banner drop. And they ended up actually leading a training on banner drops for chapters all over the world to then learn from them. They've learned as they were building this banner, okay, how do you actually do a big banner drop? And then taught other chapters around the world. And then did a light projection as well. This is a real photo of, yeah, a projector that was used to project this message onto the CN Tower. Um, a lot of the actions have been, so those were kind of actions that were more like the chapter took it on, but a lot of the stuff has been really in partnership with other groups. Here in the top left, we see our Montreal chapter members taking part in a broader day of action targeting General Dynamics factories in Quebec when they were discovered to be continuing to export explosives to Israel via the US. This was quite recently. And up at the top right is a march that was co-organized by Toronto World Beyond War alongside other local groups. This was a day of action at all of the Kraken Robotics facilities all across the country. So when workers came in that morning at every office and every factory, they were blocked from getting into their offices. And the bottom left was a Parliament Hill action. World Beyond War is a founding member of Jews Say No to Genocide. So Jewish members of World Beyond War have been part of that coalition, and others have been showing up as allies and support. And we blocked hundreds of parliamentarians from getting to their offices that morning. Speaking of which, World Beyond War is the group that started the Arms Embargo Now campaign and brought together many allied groups across the country to run. So our chapters across the country have been very, very, very involved in that campaign. And in fact, right now, there are actions across the country delivering mandate letters to the brand new MPs and the returning MPs to make sure they have all the facts in front of them about how Canada is continuing to export those weapons, and they can never again say that they didn't know. And literally this morning, folks did some great mandate delivery actions, and then there's about a few dozen more happening tomorrow. Other types of kind of joint actions have looked like coming together with other groups to take on the Toronto Air Show. There was a protest and other kind of more typical stuff, but there was also kind of a guerrilla billboard campaign where folks put up big posters all over the city. And the air show happens at like a big fair. And so folks dropped thousands of flyers from the rides at the fair so that nobody could miss the message. Other kind of national campaigns that chapters have recently been part of are the campaign uh, around the bookstore Indigo, because their CEO of Indigo has started a charity that funds Canadians to go fight in the Israeli military. These are just two examples of actions in Montreal and Toronto, but there were many all across the country. And similarly, around the Scotiabank campaign, recognizing that Scotiabank is one of the top 5 funders in the world of Elbit, which is Israel's biggest weapons company. And in fact, we're planning a Scotiabank Day of Action for June 14th, so coming up in just 10 days. And World War chapters and many, many other groups across the country are all participating in that at their local Scotiabank branches. This was just a few days ago. We joined groups, lots and lots of allies in Ottawa to take on CanSec, which is Canada's biggest weapons fair, and held a big, loud, messy protest to stop all of, frankly, the most powerful people in the world, the CEOs of companies like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, the Defense Minister of Canada, Israeli government representatives, etc., from being able to go into their weapons fair and make money profiting off of war. Um, I've talked a lot about solidarity with Palestine, but I do want to like quickly highlight that there's many other obviously aspects of our global solidarity work. For many, many years, we've been campaigning to stop Canada from selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. That's actually the biggest receiver of Canadian weapons outside of the United States is Saudi Arabia. So we have close ties with the Yemeni community and organizing around that. Um, this is showing kind of different chapters delivering petitions to different offices on this issue. We also, for years, have been struggling to stop Canada's military purchases, in this case of F-35 jets for the Canadian military. These are bomber jets that serve no purpose other than to drop bombs around the world. It's exactly how Israel has been using these jets in Gaza in the past year and a half. We don't want Canada to spend billions on these Lockheed Martin F-35 jets either. So we've released reports. Yeah, and done kind of actions all across the country. This is some folks with in the bottom left here with our Collingwood chapter. And on this issue, a member of our Vancouver chapter, this is a couple years ago now, decided to hold a fast in to raise attention to this campaign. It did get huge media attention. And what's more, people all across the country joined him in this fast, which was a really powerful action and a way to call attention to something that can be hard for people to visualize, kind of the future purchase of fighter jets, but to make it an issue that is relevant to everyone. It got expanded into a global day of action against Lockheed Martin, and these are just a few photos of chapter members participating in tons of protests around it. I could kind of go on and on. This is a rare, more casual event that I actually do have photos of. We gave out free ice cream, different chapters across the country. It was in a Cones Not Drones day to highlight how Canada was going to buy its first ever military armed drones. Um, and there's been lots of local municipal efforts as well. Um, in this example, this was a successful resolution that was passed supporting the Global Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons in Vancouver and making kind of delegations to city council. Our Collingwood group has been really good about organizing local events that bring in kind of unlikely allies, in this case, partnering with the local Legion. Um, Sometimes veterans are the most anti-war people you will meet, and it can be really powerful to make kind of those kinds of connections with other members. Even in a tiny town, you might think, oh, there's no one else who cares about this issue. But yeah, this chapter has shown that you can really connect with others in the community and bring people together with peace festivals and music festivals and Remembrance Day events that really center why we need to end the violence of war. I could go on and on, but I instead just sort of threw together a brief list of the types of actions and projects that chapters have taken on. These are just a few examples from the past year, but lots of activities to raise awareness or education with themselves and with their community, like book clubs or film screenings. Lots of media work. So we support chapters in writing op-eds and getting coverage of their local events, doing interviews for TV news, etc. Lots of different webinars, speaking at other people's events. Some chapters show up weekly at their local farmers market. Definitely lots of meetings with elected officials, and we can support with how do you meet with your member of parliament and make something positive happen out of that meeting. Um, I could go on and on, but these are sort of some examples of the types of work that chapters have done. But really, the sky is the limit, and some chapters are really big and have lots of members, and some have a core group of 4 or 5 people, and you'd be amazed at what you can do and how many people in your community you can engage just as a small group who come together with a mission and who know they're part of a broader thing across Canada and across the world. Um, on that note, I thought I would share a little bit about the relaunch recently of the Toronto chapter of World Beyond War as just sort of an example of how a chapter can get going. So there was a Toronto chapter of World Beyond War for years, and primarily because the main coordinators ended up moving away from the city, or in some cases moving away from the continent. Well, the chapter kind of persisted. It wasn't really an active chapter that was getting together and making plans and putting together actions and events. So one person who was really keen for there to be a World Beyond War chapter reached out to me, and we talked about how we could help relaunch the Toronto chapter. So we decided that 2 Octobers ago, so October 2023, which we did not know obviously at the time was going to be a very historic, let's say, month in terms of looking at like war and state violence. But we decided that we'd relaunch the Toronto chapter. We scheduled, as you can see, a campfire in a local Toronto park where we rented the fire pit. We brought hot dogs and marshmallows and all that kind of stuff. And we invited different organizations in the city to send an organizer and just share a few brief words about why they were so keen for there to be an anti-war group opening up in Toronto, why they were excited about a Toronto World Beyond War chapter joining. So here in this photo, I see Hassan with the Migrant Workers Alliance for Change talking about why, yeah, we can't be working on migrant rights if we're not looking at the cause of people needing to flee their homes and Canadian militarism. And there were people from different groups who sort of shared. We all, yeah, chatted about starting a chapter. And then we had, as you can see on the right side, a chance for people to weigh in on what they thought the chapter should work on. So we did a dotmocracy where people stuck little dots, little stickers on a paper to vote for what they thought should be some of the first projects of the chapter. We also did the same thing in terms of when and how often should the chapter meet and scheduling the first meeting. So we all left the campfire uh, social that day with a sense of like, okay, here's some of the first stuff we'd like to work on, and here's when our first meeting is going to be. So that was how it relaunched again in October 2023. And of course, right away after the chapter launched, yeah, we were suddenly facing a situation of just horrific violence in Palestine. And the chapter, I think, really stepped up in an incredible way to support Palestinian-led organizing in the city, but also to work with just a really broad coalition of groups and be, yeah, a positive anti-war force in the city. So on that note, I'd love to invite Madeline, who's with our Toronto chapter, just to share a few words about how the chapter runs and what it's up to now, because I think that having sort of a concrete sense of how chapters work can sometimes be more helpful than me just talking in the general sense cross country. Go ahead, Madeline. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, well, I feel like Rachel shared some really cool pictures and made us look really cool. Um, but so maybe I'll talk a little bit about our structure first. And like just okay, well, actually, just like me. So I joined World Beyond War Toronto about a year and a few months ago. So I wasn't at that bonfire, but that was in October, but in the spring, I joined the chapter. And since I've joined, like talking about our structure and like what our structure should look like and how decisions are made has like always been an ongoing conversation. So there's no like one like way that that we do it or that I guess other chapters do it, and we're just like always talking about it. And I think that's probably a good thing. But so currently, how we work is there's, I guess, like sort of three steps on a ladder. So there's like our email group, which is anyone who's signed up to be on our email list. I guess you could add another step, which is just like anyone who follows on us on social media, and like knows about us, and there's people who get our emails. Then there's organizers, who are people who want to organize with us and be more involved. And that group of organizers like got really big at one point, and it was kind of hard to keep track of who had capacity and who didn't. And so we started like a different group of like, right now it's called our active strategy group, and there's I think 13 people in that group. And so we're sort of the core organizers. And we invite the rest of the organizers to like join specific things that we're working on. Yeah, and I sorry, just like Greta was saying something about meetings for like chapter coordinators. So like our chapter doesn't have like a coordinator. We're just collective, I guess, and try to make decisions collectively. And like I said, talk about what that should look like. And then, so our like active strategy group right now, we meet every 2 weeks. That's, as I said, like changed a lot, but right now that's where we're at. And then we'll also have like working groups working on specific campaigns, and those groups decide when and how they should meet. So I feel like Rachel did a good job kind of talking about like we do a lot of things, and you could sort of separate it into like supporting other groups, because there's a lot of groups in the city doing great work, and so we've supported other groups just by like sharing a post on social media or showing up at a rally with a contingent. That's like a rally organized by another group. I'll share 2 little examples. So there we helped just like share with our people a fundraiser for the Sudan Solidarity Collective. So that was like we just like helped share that. Another one that's kind of interesting is that we ended up like administratively helping out one of the university encampments, like the pro-Palestinian encampments, because we happen to have a bank account that could accept donations without the donor knowing who it was going to exactly. So like that was something that we could help out with administratively. So that was cool. So yeah, there's like lots of things that we support. And then there's also campaigns that we take a more like initiating role. But I think Rachel covered a lot. So I guess like right now we have a few working groups. One of them that I'm part of is like tomorrow we're doing a screening of the Yinta documentary, which is about Wet'suwet'en resistance in like Indigenous resistance in northern British Columbia. And we just decided that we wanted to have a screening of it that's for like our members and people interested in joining. And we have like a working group for that Scotiabank Day of Action that Rachel was mentioning. So that is, I guess, like we have that one. Very good. And then we have a working group right now that's bringing awareness to the Nova exhibition, which is like a local thing happening in Toronto, is that there's this big tribute to the Nova Music Festival, which was anyway, some of you might know, but it was the site of the October 7th attacks. And so we're spreading kind of a different message that this is trauma used as propaganda and used to manufacture consent for genocide. So those are just some examples of current working groups that we have going on. Yeah, so like kind of where I'm at, like when I joined, I should have said like I don't have organizing experience, or I didn't have any organizing experience when I joined a year ago. I knew that I didn't want to like reinvent the wheel. Like other people were doing great things, and I wanted to join them. And this chapter has been really great for that and for me. A lot of what I do is, I guess, like, kind of invisible, like helping us get that new bank account, taking notes at meetings, onboarding, figuring out structure, how to get new members. By the way, I'll look out for your email, Sama. I think you said that in the chat. fundraising a tiny bit. So like that kind of more behind the scenes stuff. One thing that I did recently was the CanSec. So that's the protest that Rachel mentioned. So Canada World Beyond War is like a main organizer. Rachel's a main organizer. The Toronto chapter, what I did was just organize carpools. So it's like logistics, organizing carpools for people to go from Toronto to Ottawa, how to stay in a hostel, how that was going to work. Yeah, it's a little bit about what I have done and do. But this would look like very different if someone else was talking from our chapter. Everyone does different things. And I think every chapter does pretty different things. I did want to say that, yeah, maybe I should have said this earlier, like in our active strategy group, Rachel is a member, and like Rachel helps support us and is kind of aware of what we're doing for the most part, I think. But like never like tells us what to do, but does like provide a lot of support. So I think that's something that's like special about a chapter with World Beyond War, is that you get that support. And that support is sometimes in the form of like, this is a campaign we're doing, and like your city can take it on. And like in November, there was the F-35 Day of Action, and that was organized by Canada World Beyond War primarily. I think there were some other groups too. And so different groups in the city took it on. I was part of organizing that rally. But I didn't have to like come up with a campaign, or like our chapter didn't have to come up with a campaign. And that, like, sometimes we do, but sometimes we don't. We use a campaign that comes from Canada World Beyond War. And that, like, I find helpful. Like I said, I didn't want to like reinvent the wheel. So yeah, there's just a lot of support from the Canada coordinator, who's Rachel. So I think that's cool. Yeah, okay, I've talked too much. I'm sorry, guys.
No, thank you so much, Madeline. I think that was super helpful. And I really appreciated how you sort of laid out, like, well, first of all, the different levels of involvement. I mean, different chapters work differently, and the Toronto chapter is quite a large chapter, but I think it's really helpful to hear that the model that you guys are kind of working with right now is like a really kind of core strategy group of people who kind of know all the things the chapter are doing and are meeting super regularly to make sure it's all connected and working together. A broader group of organizers who maybe plug into some things, and then kind of a broader group of supporters who maybe are following all the stuff on social media or by email and are coming out to actions and maybe consider themselves a part of it, but aren't like actively coming to meetings. And then, of course, action groups who say, okay, we're going to organize this particular film screening, so we're just going to take that on, kind of thing. Also really liked how you stressed what some of like the nitty-gritty work of being a good ally and being part of stuff is. I mean, you were in that wonderful photo from Kansas showing people like blocking down the road covered in red paint, but the behind the scenes stuff that makes a protest like that work is the person who is organizing the carpools and the hostel beds, and that's such overlooked work. And I think that the Toronto chapter has been really good at being a good organizational ally and a good movement partner, whether it is saying, "Hey, we have a bank account, we can support your group with your fundraising thing," or I mean, you did help fundraise for the Sudan Solidarity Collective, but what you didn't say is that a bunch of Toronto World Beyond War members actually organized like an auction and got together lots of really cool stuff to auction off to support Sudanese community members in Toronto. That was behind the scenes work. I don't think anyone knew Toronto World Beyond War was doing it, but like for me, that's a really cool aspect of showing up, is not sort of just being the person who, I don't know, gets on the mic at a demo and makes a speech, but that is like behind the scenes, actually part of movement building in your community and in your city. And some of what the Toronto chapter has done that is more behind the scenes, or that isn't maybe as flashy as a protest, is things like recently putting out really strong statements in support of migrants and recognizing a lot of the xenophobia and the violence that is coming in connection to what's happening in the US. Also doing things like a bunch of folks in the Toronto chapter supported with putting together a report to the United Nations looking at Canadian complicity in Israel's genocide. So just lots of different ways to get involved. And I say this because I often hear from people, oh, I can't be a chapter coordinator, or I can't start it. I can't even like give a speech. I can't even get up in front of a crowd. And that is one role, but that's not the role. It's not the most important role. Certainly not the only role. What we need often more than that is the people who behind the scenes are checking the emails, are connecting with other groups, are like thinking about what do we actually need to keep this group happy and healthy and to support each other. So anyways, I'm talking a lot now too, but I really appreciated what you shared on all that. I'd love to pass it to Furkan for just a couple minutes to share a little bit about plans to start a new Vancouver chapter, because I know that there are some I think Vancouver area folks who are in this call as well. And then I'd love to open it up to some questions. And if there are folks who do want to speak in just small groups because they're in the Toronto area with Madeleine, or because they're in the Vancouver area with Furkan, or if there's like a few Ottawa people still here, we can make a little group of you just for like some really small conversations at the very end. But first, I'll pass it to Furkan to share about the Vancouver chapter, and then I'll take more general questions. Please go ahead, Furkan.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Rachel. Yeah, so I started this chapter in 2019, and we were fairly active for 2, 3 years. That was about a core team of 4 to 8 people, varied depending on the time of the year, and and we set up different kinds of events, webinars. We had David Swanson here for a couple of intro events when we started the chapter. We had John Foster here for on a webinar. Actually, he was supposed to be in person, but then COVID hit, so we transitioned to online. And we also got involved in this cities, ICANN cities appeal. And we had 2 cities that were able to pass resolutions supporting that, Langley and White Rock. And then we got the 2 of them to submit a resolution to UBCM, to asking all cities in BC to do the same, but the resolution didn't move forward. And then things kind of fizzled away, and around beginning of 2023, I think, just got the team got burnt out and kind of went dormant for a while. And now we're in an attempt to kind of restart the chapter. There's a few new people that have expressed interest. I thought they might join today, and I'm not sure if they're on. And then there's a few people on today, so I'm hoping we can get a core team up and active again to kind of restart the activities for the chapter.
Wonderful. Thank you, Furkan. Yeah, I'd love at this point if anyone has any questions, you can either type them in the chat or you can put your hand up and we'll unmute you so you can ask them. It can be for me or Greta, or it can be for Madeleine or Furkan, or for whatever might make most sense for you. And I'll try and look back at the chat and see if there are any questions from earlier that I missed. I mean, maybe I should say that in general, what I always suggest for people is the first step if they're thinking about starting a chapter after learning a little bit more about the organization and how it works, like you've done tonight, is to try to chat with a few people that you may know to see if there are even 2 or 3 people who might be interested in starting a chapter with you. We also have email lists of people all across the country that we can sort by what city people live in. So we can do things like email everyone who is on our list, let's say in Edmonton, and say, hey, some folks are thinking of starting a new chapter. You're invited to a meeting to look into that. But it does tend to be better if the person starting it has already connected with maybe 1 or 2 other people to host that first meeting together, where we then will invite our broader networks to show up. That said, in cases where people have been really keen to start a chapter but haven't had 1 or 2 other people there, we can brainstorm and we can look at making other connections with allies. But ideally, people start as a very small core group to get it going. but we've been working, yeah, quite closely with folks in Alberta on a bunch of issues. And right now, the G7 is going to be happening in Alberta very soon this month. And so we've been quite a lot in touch with folks there who are looking at how they can protest it, especially in the Calgary area. Is there benefit to a small city creating a chapter? So typically, in my experience with World Beyond War, but frankly also with my experience with the Council of Canadians, like another countrywide organization that had lots of chapters across the country, big city chapters have typically been harder to maintain, to be honest. There's lots going on in big cities. There's like many, many different groups. People are part of 10 different groups, and it can feel really hard to find your place. Small cities have often been some of the most effective places to have chapters, to be honest. In terms of having a good balance of there being other groups and other people to work with, but not a sense of, oh, everything is already being done, or there's always a group that already is working on that issue. So it can be easier to kind of find your place. Greta, I'd love to hear sort of your perspective on that, working with many more chapters around the world.
I was going to say the same thing that you said. Yeah, I agree with your analysis. I found the same thing. And in general, just to say that, like, having a specific geographic purpose or area kind of gives you your turf in organizing terms. It gives you your turf to organize around in terms of mapping out, like, who are the legislators in the area? What are the issues in the area? Who are the stakeholders? Who are the allies you can work with? So kind of actually, yeah, being as specific as possible is helpful. Like we found that chapters that are like province wide or country wide are much too hard to organize at that scale.
And that's like often been like European countries that are still like tiny, like where you can still drive from one end to one end in like 2 or 3 hours. There couldn't be a Canada-wide chapter because like it would be an idea or a concept more than it would ever be, I think, a group of people who work closely together on issues. Um, yeah, I also been happy to see a number of folks from Ottawa on this call. We work really closely with lots of groups in Ottawa and lots of individuals. Um, and yeah, I think it's a city where we have a lot of people who would be keen to start a chapter. But again, it's kind of been that big city thing where people are maybe in other groups and aren't sure about starting a new group. But recently, I've been hearing a lot of interest from Ottawa. We just started working with Ottawa Allies on a really interesting campaign there. Gas Tops is an Ottawa-based company. Its only real factory is in Ottawa, and they are the only place in the world that makes a key engine sensor that is in every single F-35 jet on the planet. So F-35 is like the most advanced fighter jet. It's one of the main ones that Israel's using to bomb Gaza, but it's used all over the world. And the only place the engine sensor gets made is at this one factory in Ottawa. So it's like a really interesting aspect of the supply chain. And Gas Tops is trying to build their second factory, a huge new factory in Ottawa. So we're teaming up with lots of activists in the Ottawa area. We just launched a campaign targeting city planners, telling them they shouldn't approve the permit. I think that's actually a good example of where it makes sense for a local group to really take on their local city planners around a particular weapons factory, but with kind of the national and international support of the broader context of what does this factory mean? Oh, it's actually key to the Canada's participation in the F-35 program, but also to the literal jets bombing Gaza today. So to kind of connect at the local, national, and international level. I'm just scanning through the comments. It sounds like there are some folks who might be interested in connecting and collaborating and who are making those connections. That's wonderful. Yes, there are key factories that are making key F-35 parts in the Vancouver area. And I will drop a link in the chat of a map that I put together. Oh, Greta has just beat me to it. Thank you, Greta. Showing weapons companies across the country that are arming Israel. So some of these are offices, some of these are factories. If you zoom in, here, maybe I'll just screen share for 1 second. So this is at worldbeyondwar.org/Canada Stop Arming Israel. And here I've zoomed in on the Vancouver area. And so all of these are companies involved in arming Israel. But these ones, I've done a lot of focusing on the F-35 supply program. Any dot, it explains it underneath, but the red dots are factories where F-35 parts are made at that factory that are being used in Israel's jets. So here we have ASCO and Avcor, and if you scroll down underneath, you can see that ASCO makes, in fact, the single biggest piece of nearly every F-35, which is the bulkheads. It's kind of like the sort of structure piece at the front. But if you zoom out, you'll see that all across the country um, are weapons companies that are involved in arming Israel, with a huge concentration, I should say, in like the greater Montreal and the greater Toronto area, but it really is truly from coast to coast. Yeah, that's a great comment about Échec à la guerre. So Montreal World Beyond War is a member of Échec à la guerre, like a bigger anti-war coalition in the Montreal area. Um, Oh, thank you, Furkan. You found the company under a different name. I will say it's a very tricky thing about these weapons companies is that they constantly switch names. They have branches and subdivisions that have different names, and it has been a job that I didn't think would be my job to keep track of all these weapons companies and what they're doing and what they're exporting. Okay, I don't know if there are any other questions. Maybe can folks use the chat to indicate if they would want to be just have a chance to chat just one-on-one for a few minutes with either Furkan in the around organizing in the Vancouver area or Madeleine around Toronto area organizing. Maybe just indicate so in the chat, and then I can connect you guys just for like a 5 minutes just to see about next steps around connecting. Um, and then if not, or even so, I'll just wrap up the rest of this meeting together now, but I'll stay on for a few minutes in case anyone wants to just chat one-on-one with me. But in general, I just feel really appreciative that all of you took time the evening to hear from us and to connect around possibilities around working with World Beyond War, whether you do decide to start a chapter or whether you are a part of another group or want to work together. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm just at Rachel@WorldBeyondWar.org. Greta is just Greta@WorldBeyondWar.org. And yeah, we're always excited to work together with folks across the country.